Hello and welcome to another game of Company of Heroes. I am Fancy Josh, and today we've got a game between ShootShootPewPew and esrm. ShootShootPewPew playing as the Western Front German Army, the OKW. I have seen him play before. I don't know if it's made it onto my channel yet, but I've definitely watched a few of his games. Very solid player, very aggressive from what I've seen. And I'm excited to see what he brings to the table today. He is 45th in the world, I believe, as the West German Army. esrm, on the other hand, playing as the Soviets. I have not seen him play before, but he is, I think, 80-something, low 80s on the ladder. So it should be a good game. And the Fog of War is not working for me. That's okay. Let's quickly talk about the map before we get into this. So, Crossroads. Great map. Been on this tournament scene for quite a while. Fairly balanced map, as usual. Most maps that are on the ladder for an extended period of time are fairly balanced, so big fan of this map myself. Critical cutoff point here. These 2 points mirrored across the road there. Those connect you to all of your resources on the right side. It connects you to your munitions, connects you to this fuel out here. So we will see players trying to steal that point away from each other. Not easy to do because, of course it's close to your opponent's base. But we were very likely to see some fights taking place in this area. And it looks like we got a fight breaking out already between these engineers and this Kuba wagon. So quickly, one other thing about this map. In order to capture anything on the opposite side of the road, there's a couple points that sit on the road itself. So it is difficult to maintain control of points, your opponent's points across the road. But we will likely see scuffles, like I said, on one of these critical cutoff points, or maybe scuffles around the fuel points across the road. Even if you can't maintain control of it, it's good to try and steal those points away from your opponent. So, actually a little bit of an unusual opening from both of our players here. The German player has opened with 3 Pioneer squads. That is not something you see very often, and a Kuba wagon. Those German Pioneers, lethal up close, but they definitely fall off hard in the mid-game when the big guns start coming out. They're strong in the early game because they're able to close the distances against the limited firepower of single squads. But yeah, like I said, they're only effective up close. So, and of course they can repair this Kuba wagon, so you'll often see German players group up their Kuba wagons with their Sturm Pioneers. They complement each other well. German player, on the other hand, has added in, he started off with 2 engineering squads into a penal squad, I believe that is. And he added on this truck. I forget what the name of this thing is. Light scout car. So this actually was this has been a popular strategy for quite a while, and that's a dead scout car, but it's also a dead Kuba wagon. So both of those vehicles are extremely light, and they, as you can see, they die quickly to small arms fire, as we just saw there. And yeah, so I think his strategy was going to be with that penal battalion was to potentially add flamers onto them. I don't know if they could still do that, but sometimes they'll add in flamethrowers onto the... Okay, so they only get the anti-tank rifles. Maybe I'm thinking of Commander that lets them do that. Anyway, yeah, okay, that was his strategy. So he added a flamer onto this engineering squad in anticipation of putting it in that truck. And all of a sudden you have a mobile flamethrower that it can fire while moving, and it's fast because it's in the car, and it looks like he's going to go for it again. He's adding on another scout car to make that happen. So these light penal battalions are kind of an interesting choice. They're not very popular, but they do have long-range anti-tank capabilities. They can be equipped with anti-tank rifles that allows them to shoot from range and destroy light armor. If you get enough of them, they can start to be effective against medium armor, but not a long-term solution. These penal battalions, very similar to conscripts in their health and accuracy. They're very, very similar. I'm actually not sure of the specific differences But for all intents and purposes, this is a conscript squad. Now, I think we've seen the flamer added into this truck here. Yeah, he's driving away those Sturm Pioneers. As you can see, that truck is firing its flamer while moving. It also has that heavy machine gun on the front of it, making it effective against infantry in its own right. But we're going to see him continue to be aggressive like this. He's going to drive into squads. He's going to flame them out. He's going to push them away. A great choice for getting map control. And as you can see right now, I mean, he's controlling a huge portion of the map, just driving all over the place. Anywhere he sees his opponent, he's driving over there, and he's pushing them back. German players started to add on these Jaeger light infantry squads. That's from his commander. This is an elite squad, effective at long range, accurate at long range too. Sometimes you'll see players play aggressively with them. They'll get in their opponent's face and even with the sniper rifles and try and kill them at close range. But I like to see those squads used at long range. Sturm Pioneers being upgraded with a Panzerschreck, that's going to allow them to easily deal with this scout car. I think it's 2, maybe 3 shots from a Panzerschreck will kill one of these scout cars. So our Soviet player is going to have to be really careful with that vehicle. Planting mines over here. Unfortunately for him, the German's going to see him do it, so he cancels building it, because even if he gets it on the ground there, he's not going to want to leave it there. And we just heard a engineering squad die from our Soviet player, and the answer to my question was 2. This thing can take 2 shots before it dies. And the German player smartly, he manually attacked that vehicle wreck because he didn't want the Soviet player to be able to recapture it, repair it up and recapture it. German player continuing to add on Jaeger light infantry. Let's talk about the commanders while we have a little bit of a break here. So our Soviet player has gone for the guard motor coordination tactics. Gives them access to these guards rifle infantry. They're an elite squad. They are effective against both infantry and light vehicles at a variety of ranges. They also get access to this 120mm mortar squad. The vehicles can repair themselves. They don't need an engineer to do it. It does cost munitions, but you'll see that in dire situations where they need to get the vehicle back on the field quickly. They also have this mark vehicle ability, which basically allows units to be more accurate against a particular vehicle. And of course, the infamous T-34-85s. It is a better armored, more health, bigger gun version of the T-34-76. It's better against... it is better against vehicles, but not as good against infantry. So, that tank is a match for most medium tanks that the German can field, and sometimes even some of those heavier tanks if you build them up in number. So this game's been a bit of a bloodbath for both players. I mean, our Soviet player has lost 2 vehicles and an engineering squad. And wow, that was a big mine hit. So the Soviet canceled the mine placement earlier, as we saw, and then he built it again because he really wanted that mine there, and he killed 4 squad members across 2 squads there. So really, that was a high-value mine. That's expensive for the German to replace at this stage in the game. Now, this fight definitely favors... I was going to say that fight favors the Sturm Pioneers because they're at close range, but the Soviet player threw a satchel charge. This ability here, it's expensive, 45 munitions. But as you can see, it wiped the squad. Totally worth that investment. Just like that mine was worth it. That satchel charge, killing that squad. Not only that, that squad had a Panzerschreck on it, so he killed some munitions off of his opponent. That's a big deal. That's a big deal at this stage in the game. See, like I was saying, just total bloodbath. Both players losing multiple squads. Yeah, that's gonna... Well, that's what I love. You know, that makes for an interesting game. Neither player is ahead, but both players have taken significant setbacks at this stage in the game. Fun to see. So where do our players want to go from here? And yeah, he beats me to it. Every time I go to talk about this, the player beats me to the punch. So he's added on his light vehicle building. It's a tier 2 building. And it gives him access to light vehicles. And he's adding on a T-70 light tank. Very common choice at this stage in the game. It's effective against the light armor that the German can field at this stage. It's good against infantry. It's fast. This player clearly likes to be mobile. I mean, we saw him add on 2 scout cars in an effort to gain some map control, and he's good at it. So I don't mind this choice. That said, this T-70 is going up against 2 squads of Sturm Pioneers that have Panzerschrecks, so that vehicle is going to have to be really careful. German, on the other hand, has teched up. So he's added this battle group headquarters on, and he's added his Panzer headquarters. Okay, I take it all back. So he's added on these Panzer headquarters, and he's upgraded it with the flak cannon on top of the building. This thing is going to absolutely shred infantry. It is going to give the German player control of this side of the map for the foreseeable future. You can't deal with this thing. You cannot deal with this building without indirect fire or AT guns or medium armor at the very least. This T-70 cannot drive into that field. He will get shot and potentially destroyed. So our German player is foregoing. He's foregoing any light vehicles, and he's going straight for his medium tanks. He's probably 2-3 minutes out from... He's about 3 minutes away from having a medium tank if he maintains his current fuel income. And I would say that's likely because he's got this Panzer headquarters defending this area. And the Soviet player looks like he's adding on a mortar. I believe that's the... Yeah, it is. This 120 millimeter mortar. It's almost an artillery shell. I mean, 120 millimeter barrel fires quite a large explosive. This thing, if it vets up, can start to fire delayed fuses, which I believe those are larger explosions. Yeah, supercharged rounds. Yeah, but they're basically intended for buildings. Oh, nice. I love this play. He's smoking off. With his mortar, he's firing smoke rounds to not allow this headquarters to fire, and he's throwing satchel charges on it. That is a creative strategy. I've never seen that done before. I'm sure this player's not the first to think of it, but that's the first time I've ever seen that. And now he's going to probably follow it up with a barrage from the 120mm mortar. That tank's got to get out of there. It's not a place he wants to be. Yep, now the mortar's firing, and I think that's a dead Panzer headquarters. Potentially, the German's going to have to dedicate all of his forces to this left side to be able to save this building. If that goes down, that's a huge fuel investment. Yeah, and there it goes. Wow. Really, really well played by the Soviet player. He had a plan, and he executed. That is not the first time he's had to deal with that. I love that play. That was fun. That was fun to see. Now, that said, you know, our German's not feeling good after that. That was a couple hundred manpower investment on top of a 90 fuel investment. He's going to have to re-add that building on. So that put him another 3 minutes away from getting medium tanks. Meanwhile, our Soviet player is also probably that far away because he's invested in light vehicles in the early game, so he's going to be a little bit delayed, but he does have a tremendous amount of fuel income right now. I think he'll probably get up to about 200 fuel, and then he'll start adding on a tank, potentially. We'll see how he wants to play it. He has options. Yeah, and I just want to quickly talk about the placement of this Panzer headquarters. It wasn't a great place to defend this entire area. It was defending a critical fuel point, defending this victory point. It was a great placement in that sense, but it was a bad placement in the sense of it was exposed. It's in a dangerous position. The German player really needed to dedicate more forces to that side of the map in order to hold it, and he was being a little bit greedy because he was trying to capture this side of the map with his army while that Panzer headquarters held down that side of the map, and he paid for it. Soviet player making a move on this cutoff point. Unfortunately for him, the German player was in a position to deal with it. German player has activated this For the Fatherland ability. That's going to make all these squads really hard to kill, and basically ensure that he wins this fight. And I think the Soviet player needs to get out of here with just about everything. This is the distance that Sturm Pioneers want to fight from. They want to close that gap, and you see that there. It's going to be a short fight. Big mortar round coming in there, damaging both those squads. So it looks to me like this German player has both of these Sturm Pioneers hotkeyed on the same group. Nothing wrong with that. If you're new to the game, I highly recommend hotkeying a couple units together. You don't want to blob up everything. You don't want to have all of your units on one hotkey, because you'll end up just blobbing around the map. And yes, you will win fights, but if your opponent is savvy, they will capture other areas in the map while you're bunching up. They also might want to add in heavy machine guns to deal with your blobs. They will add in mortars, as we saw that had a huge mortar hit on that Sturm Pioneer. Yeah. So a little bit of a draw here. Neither player is up to medium tanks. It looks like our Soviet player just went up. He just added on... Yeah, he added on his mechanized armor building there. It's going to give him access to medium tanks. I think we're probably going to see him build a T-34-85 right out of the gate. How much does that cost? Costs 130 fuel. Yeah, I wouldn't... He can add on a 76mm variant right now, but I think we're going to see him save up. Now, this building is getting awful low health, so it is very dangerous for squads to stand in this building right now. Nice job covering his tank with this penal battalion. That's a grenade. That was a stun grenade. So stun grenades don't actually deal any damage, but they do make it so the squad cannot fight. And as you saw, it actually slowed the squad down. But they managed to retreat out of there. Well, that's a bit greedy. I don't think these things... Yeah, those Jaeger Light Infantry can't fire Panzerfaust, and this Soviet player knows that. So he was chasing that Sturm Pioneer squad down to try and kill it. Didn't get it in the end, but I don't mind that play. Oh, and a Katushka rocket launcher from our Soviet player. I think that's okay. I think he's correctly identified that he has denied his opponent fuel by killing the Sturm, the Panzer headquarters earlier in the game. And he's looking like he's trying to repeat that here by throwing satchel charges onto this headquarters here. I don't think he's going to be able to kill this building. But the mortar's helping out, so he's trying to make it work. This is a really creative strategy. I love this. I might have to try this build myself. I tend to struggle a little bit against the Western German army when I play as Soviets, and this Soviet player is making it look easy. Now, let's talk about that Katushka rocket launcher again. He's correctly identified that he has significantly set the German back in terms of fuel, which means our German player is not going to be adding on a tank anytime soon. Oh, and here comes the barrage. He's going to try and kill this building with that. He might get it, too. 2 more barrages. Nicely done. That's big. That's really important. I mean, wow, that's... that is not something you see very often, where the game is relatively even, but the German player has lost 2 of his command buildings. That's just crazy to me. That is crazy to me. That is a major, major setback. Yeah, so as I keep trying to say, but I keep getting interrupted, German player added on this Katyusha rocket launcher because his opponent does not have any medium tanks, and the Soviet player knows it. He knows just how much fuel he's hit this German for. So he's added on this Katyusha rocket launcher to deal with the infantry. This is an infantry killer. It's an area denial. It can really support pushes if you bomb an area that you want to walk into. That rocket artillery can soften up the units there or force them to retreat and make your push that much easier. I do like this anti-tank gun add-on by our German player. Unfortunately, he's not going to get a lot of value out of it, at least not yet, because our Soviet player has not added on any medium tanks yet. That's a Vet 5 Sturm Pioneer squad. That is scary. A scary unit. sure. Hard to kill, too. Hard to kill. Yeah, but with no medium tanks to deal with, that AT gun... Oh, nice wipe on that Penal Battalion squad. Man, I can't get a word out edgewise. It's just action-packed right now. Big fight breaking out here. That squad's going to have to retreat, and these Sturm Pioneers are going to try and close the gap on this blob of units here. That is a Guards rifle. So he started to mix in Guards rifle troops as well. Nice stun grenade. That's going to make this squad totally ineffective. They got to get out of there. He might die if he doesn't see it, you know. Here comes a Katushka rocket barrage. And he's doing that from close range, which makes this thing super accurate, but that truck's got to be super careful. It's very fragile. Easily destroyed by those Panzerschrecks. I think it can only take 2 shots from a Panzerschreck. I mean, that thing is flimsy. Paper Dragon. T-70 being aggressive. And paying for it. Walked right into a Panzerschreck. And he lost the vehicle there. The question is, do these have Panzerfausts? I think the answer is no. But they do have a salvage ability, which lets them salvage damaged vehicles for fuel and munitions. We saw him try to cast it there, but he didn't manage to get the ability off. Wow, this game continues to be a slugfest. Both players taking heavy losses. We've seen multiple squad wipes on both sides. Lots of vehicles going down. Lots of buildings going down. Really, really fun to see. Our Soviet player is actually really, really hurting for fuel right now. And on the flip side of that, our German has 1.5 million fuel. I'm not sure what our German player wants to do. Let's watch this fight. Not going to be very interesting. He's just going to secure that point and probably push in a certain direction. Looks like he's going down. Yeah, so our German player hasn't been able to add on any buildings. I mean, he did, and they got destroyed. And he needs to add them back on. He's got a ton of fuel for that. What he doesn't have... I mean, he does have a ton of manpower. But it's not enough. It will be soon. I mean, if you keep saving... The thing is, you got to keep in mind that this manpower is constantly being drained because you're constantly having to reinforce your squads. What a strange game. What a strange game. Basically no armor. No medium armor at all yet. German player's adding on a T-34-85 right now. But I'm not sure what he wants to accomplish with that, because the German has a great composition for dealing with that tank. He doesn't have any vehicles yet, and that's a dead squad. That's big. That's important. That was an important squad he couldn't afford to lose there. He's adding it back on right away, because he knows that he's going to need it. Katushka rocket strike might kill that squad. That tower saving a ton of damage. Oh, he got him anyway. Wow. Just a bloodbath. It continues to be a bloodbath. Loses an engineering squad, strikes right back with the Katushka rocket strike. Nice rally point for this tank. I mean, he's busy, right? I mean, you're constantly doing stuff all over the map, so not uncommon to see that. Especially if you're me. I mean, And there's the Tiger tank. Oh, okay, so I did not know this about the German army. It used to be that you had to have all 3 of your supply trucks constructed and on the map in order to add on a Tiger tank. Looks like they've changed that. You only have to build the buildings, and then you can build the tank. So, really good add-on here. This super heavy tank is going to be really difficult for the Soviet player to deal with. Soviet player needs anti-tank guns because he doesn't have the fuel to add on more tanks. This T-34 is no match for this Tiger. You need 2, maybe even 3 of these T-34s in order to be able to deal with this tank. I would say 3. 2 is not enough either. Even with the 85mm gun, he's going to have a hard time dealing with that Tiger tank. Just barely getting out of there, dodging that shot at the last minute. So I would say... I think that our Soviet player is paying... He's paying for it right now. He added on that Katushka rocket launcher, which gave him an advantage for nearly 10 minutes there. Probably not quite that long. But he's paying for it now, because if he'd spent that fuel on a tank, he would be able to deal with this tiger right now. Now, the game would look completely different, right? I mean, if he hadn't added that on, he wouldn't have been able to kill buildings, he wouldn't have been able to wipe some Sturm Pioneer squads. So it's a trade-off, and he's feeling the trade-off right now. Man, these high veterancy Sturm Pioneers, really interesting strategy from both players. I mean, both players, we saw penal battalions, we saw buildings destroyed we saw a Katushka rocket launcher, all to get ahead. And our German player has gone for 4 long-range squads, and I think he's built 4 or 5 Sturm Pioneers this game in an effort to deal with, be close range and also deal with those tanks. Oh, nice satchel charge there. Nicely done. So we saw these penal battalions have a button vehicle ability. Basically, they shoot the sight holes where the men inside are peeking out of. So when you pin a vehicle, it's less effective at shooting. It doesn't move as quickly because it's under that fire. And then they also have, penal battalions also have an ability to throw an anti-tank satchel charge. It does a tremendous amount of damage. As you can see, it damaged the engine there. And I think he's going to do another one. He might lose the squad in the process, though. And he's pinning. This is a Mark vehicle ability. That's what that airplane is overhead. It's sighting this tank here. So he has constant vision of this tank while this ability is active. It also makes units more accurate against the vehicle, but he doesn't have the forces to follow up on it. German player did add back in a Sturm, excuse me, I don't know why I keep calling it that, a Panzer headquarters, which is, now he's controlling this area. And this is a much safer placement for this vehicle. It's still controlling a fuel and a victory point, but it's on his side of the map, and he's covering it with this heavy tank. He is clearly dedicated to defending this side of the map. I mean, his entire army's over here right now. Trying to get this tank repaired up, but the Soviet player's not letting that happen. He's barraging it with mortars so that if the Sturm Pioneers try and repair it, they'll die. And that's exactly what we saw happen. Long-range fight here definitely favors the German player. He's called in for the fatherland again. All these units gaining defensive bonuses in their own territory. Not sure why he called that in. He might have thought there was a big push coming from the Soviet there. You know, it occurs to me I haven't had time to talk about this Overwatch Doctrine, which is the commander that our German has chosen. Gets access to this Jaeger Light Infantry Squad, which we're seeing all over the place. He gets Goliath tanks and flares that he can deploy on these command points here that will reveal enemies for a while after they get activated. It also gives him access to those Goliath tanks. You never ever see those. They're an anti-building unit. They're really lightly armored, so if you tried to use one to destroy, say, an infantry squad or a tank, they would just blow it up before it got in range. Nice use of the Katushka there, forcing away his opponent. German player also has access to light artillery. Light artillery is sort of a misnomer. I mean, no, artillery is never light, but it is on the lighter end of artillery units, and it's a good add. I don't think he's going to build it this game because of the fact that his opponent has a Katushka rocket strike, and by being able to move this Katushka around, he can keep it safe, but that artillery would be stagnant and vulnerable to... That might be a dead tank. He's just barely going to get out of there. Yes, the artillery is, of course, susceptible to counter barrages, and being unable to move, I seriously doubt we're going to see him build that this game. Last thing, you get access to the sector artillery. You can choose a sector. Planes will fly overhead and shoot anything in that sector. Can lead to some really strong pushes. But as you can see, it costs an absolute ton of munitions. Nearly 300 munitions. That is a lot. I mean, that takes 10 minutes at his current fuel income to build, munitions income to build up. Might be a dead mortar. Maybe. Yep. Oh, and he lost the mortar too. That's unfortunate for him. He's gonna be hurt for that mortar. He could probably add one back in. We're getting to the stage in the game where victory points are manpower is less important to an extent. I mean, he's building up a nice little reserve here. Both players on it, adding on tank destroyers. The German players added on a Jagdpanzer, which is a tank that can only shoot in one direction, but it is extremely accurate. It's long range, can shoot way farther than it can see, and once it starts vetting up, it can actually get camouflaged, so it can sit in cover and become camouflaged so your opponent doesn't know where it is until it shoots at him. Likewise, our Soviet players added on an Su-85. This is a tank destroyer. It's very similar to the Jagdpanzer. Long range, can only fire in one direction. Its shells are big and they often penetrate armor. And I think that T-34 is barely going to get out of there. He was exploiting the weakness of these tanks in that they can only shoot in one direction. Their turrets do not rotate. I believe that's a sector assault. So he's forcing his opponent out of this area. Doesn't want him to be able to control the area. Now, those planes won't shoot if they can't see. If they don't have vision, they're not going to fire. So even though that got called in the sector, he still has to have vision of the area for it to be effective. He's getting vision now. So this is a very dangerous place to be if you're a Soviet infantryman, not just because of this Tiger, but because of that airplanes overhead. You know, I haven't had a chance to talk about it because this game has been insane. But the score, let's take a look at the score. You know, how you win the game. The German player has been on the back foot in terms of score points this entire game, victory points. He's down to 150. But, like I was saying at the beginning of this game, the German tends to get stronger the later the game goes. Because he gets access to super heavy armor, and he also gets access to this Vet 5 squads. You can see that these squads over here are Veterancy 5. The maximum normally for all other armies is 3. So they have a higher cap. They can be at a higher level. Oh, big barrage. Nicely done. Almost killed a squad there. Definitely injured a few others. Yeah, so the German is definitely at his strongest point in this game, and the Soviet player is going to have to play scrappy to stay in this game, and he is playing scrappy. Yeah, so the German player is able to keep all of his tanks together. I mean, you can see he has dominant map presence right now. He has all 3 victory points. He's got almost the entire map under his control. And yeah, I mean, he's just going to be hurting. He's going to be ticking that Soviet player down. Now, the Soviet player has plenty of time. He's got half of his victory points remaining. So he's definitely not out of this game, but he's got an uphill battle from here on out. Those are anti-tank rounds we're seeing from this penal battalion over here. They are damaging that vehicle, especially on the side armor there. He's going to run up and throw a satchel charge. He might even be able to kill this. Probably not. I don't think that's going to kill the vehicle. Almost. Oh, and a shot from the Su-85 to kill the vehicle. But that Su-85... Oh, it lived! It lived. That's incredible. Very lucky for the Su-85. Nice shot by him to kill that Jagdpanzer. That's important. That said, the German does have enough fuel to add on another tank, and he's adding on a Panther. Technically classified as a medium tank. I think of it as a heavy tank. It's got a lot of armor. It's agile. It's got a big gun. It can take on multiple tanks at a time because of its agility. Oh, and it has a ton of health too. I mean, it's just a really, really solid tank all around. And this game continues to be a bloodbath. Our Soviet player's adding on an AT gun. He's gonna need it in a big way here. He is absolutely choked for fuel. There's no way he's getting a tank anytime soon. So he's saving up that fuel and adding on anti-tank weapons instead. The Soviet player's done an excellent job trying to stay on the map. I think he's correctly identified that he just needs to worry about victory points. If he can the longer he can make this game last, the better off he's going to be. And he doesn't need manpower. I mean, he does need manpower, but that's not a resource he can capture on the map. He does need fuel, but victory points are more important for him right now. I mean, he's bleeding fast here. So, there's an AT gun getting a nice hit. This AT gun is definitely not likely to penetrate that front armor. I'd say it's got about a 25% penetration chance on that front armor. So, very lucky first shot for him. Didn't deal a ton of damage. Well, it did deal a ton of damage, but this tank has an unbelievable amount of health. But, importantly, Soviet players he's kept his Katushka alive this whole game. He kept his Su-85 alive. And he still has his T-34-85. That's what's keeping him in this game. It's giving him a chance. Yeah, this is going to be a nail-biter. I'll tell you that much. There's the Panther on the field. This thing is a tank killer. It's not very effective against infantry, but I don't think he needs it to be. He just needs that armored presence on the map supporting his troops. More shots coming in from this AT gun. Nice barrage there. He's constantly forcing his opponent's infantry back to the base. He just sends them back to base. Every time they come out, he doesn't want to deal with it. He needs to be able to... He's trying to deal with these tanks, and if the infantry are there to support, he's going to have a heck of a time getting that done. Su-85 kind of in a bad spot in between two big guns. And, man, even the shells from this Su-85 bounce off that front armor from that Tiger. And that is probably a dead Su-85. After the German destroyed that anti-tank gun, he said, "I'm coming in," and he got it done. Now, I don't want to call this game too early, but things are looking really, really bad for our Soviet player. He doesn't have the fuel to replace that tank. He probably won't ever have the fuel to replace that tank. He does have a lot of squads that are effective against tanks, so maybe he can get something done. But, nice wipe. He killed the Panzerschreck. Oh, and he wiped the squad. That's really important. That is really, really important. He needs to be wiping squads and vehicles as often as he can. He wiped that Sturm Pioneer squad. He might even pick up that Panzerschreck. Meanwhile, oh, good hit from that the T-34-85. He managed to wipe a squad over there. That is absolutely critical. I don't think he should have moved in with the tank, but he might be able to kill this Panther. There is a chance. He doesn't have munitions for another satchel charge, so he's going to have to kill it with small arms. Those anti-tank rifles, he's going to get it. Wow. Wow. You know, like I said, I didn't want to call this game too soon. Oh, and a squad wipe on retreat by that Tiger tank. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't want to call this game too early, because as we saw, the Soviet player made a huge push there. He did what he needed to do. He killed the tank. He killed two squads, high vet squads. Those were vet 5 Sturm Pioneers. That is not something that this German will ever be able to replace this game. Another squad wipe there. Man, brutal last few minutes in this game. Brutal. And that Katyusha's got to get out of there. That Tiger's pissed that his friends are being barraged this entire game. I wouldn't be surprised to see this Tiger drive into the base here. I think he should know that just how much damage he's done to his opponent and just how strapped for cash his opponent is. And I think this could very well be the end of the game. the beginning of the end. But our Soviet player is not giving up. He's continuing to send squads out to capture points. Unfortunately for him, he only has 2 squads remaining. How many kills does Katushka have? 17 and 1 building. That was that building we saw early game. Wow. A Vet 3 Tiger tank is a sight to behold. It gets an ability where it can lock the turret rotation and make the gun more accurate, but losing that turret rotation really takes away your ability to be agile. I mean, the tank's already not agile, but basically pigeonholes it even more into that role. Greater accuracy, faster target acquisition, fires the gun more often. I mean, this thing is nasty right now. And wow, our Soviet player managed to save up enough for another tank. We'll see if he's able to get anything done with that tank. I think that's a T-34-76, the smaller barrel variant. Yeah, it is. So that thing is going to be absolutely terrible against that Tiger tank. But what it might have let him do is kill more infantry. And if he manages to get it to Vet 1 while he's still alive here, he can actually capture points with it. So he could potentially drive in over here and capture this point. I'm curious what his plan for that is, because that was a ton of his manpower. And actually, I think that's the end of the game. I think that our Soviet player may have left the game. Wow. What a game. What a total bloodbath. Really, really fun to watch. Lots of death and destruction in the early game. Kind of cooled off in the mid-game a little bit with players vying for control. The Soviet player managed to destroy 2 of his opponent's buildings, really setting him back. He tried to capitalize on it with the Katushka rocket. Couldn't quite get enough damage done, and then fell behind in the armor race in the late game there. Wow. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. That game was so awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did, and I will see you in the next video.